Stefano here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I highly encourage everyone watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord. For those watching on the live stream, there will be people in the community chatting in the Art Blocks Mints channel. A link to our Discord can be found in the description of this video. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of our weekly show. And now I want to introduce our guest for this afternoon. We have generative artist Stefano Contiero.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Panio.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, Stefano. Yeah, we have a lot to cover. You have a lot of really great projects that I want to kind of do like a deep dive in. But yeah, first I would like to just know a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. I'm Stefano. I'm half Italian, half Dominican. I think this plays quite a part in my art practice. I'm currently recently moved back to Italy after 2 years in Berlin. I'm a generative artist, now a full-time artist as well. I used to do this as passion project. It was literally what was keeping me awake at night. And then, art blocks happen. Now I'm able to do this full time and really focus all of myself into being a generative artist and hopefully even around other practices in the near future.
Well, we're really happy that you're part of the platform and, on our blocks launching several projects, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But I'm kind of curious, when you started getting into art, learning about generative art, were, there's specific artists or, specific pieces of work that kind of inspired you early on?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a bit a difficult question to answer very straightly. I've never been let's say, an art expert at all, but I was kind of all my life surrounded by art. By starters, being from Italy, it's literally impossible to live without having art in your face every day, pretty much everywhere. And then as well, when I was traveling to Dominican Republic to meet family, my aunts, I think almost all my aunts are painters and some kind of artists and so on. So I always have been surrounded into this kind of art life. And then when I started kind of understanding what was art, there were some very specific traditional artists that kind of caught my attention. For starters, I think Van Gogh was one of the very first, and then all the impressionist current like Monet and so on. So kind of trying to represent reality through very little details and uncommon technique for the area. And then later I moved more toward abstract art like Rothko or Pollock. And I think they kind of are reflected nowadays into my art, where there's a lot of use of colors, but also a lot of textures and tiny details and so on. And then as well, when I was more starting to generative art, I think, my biggest inspiration, I'm a huge fan of him. It's Tyler Ups, of course, from Cadenza. I think all his essays and videos about generative art and how to create and make generative art organic really struck a chord with me. And it kind of pushed me to start my generative art experience as an artist and to experiment and make my own those techniques and then change later on to anything else. And then same with Ben Kovac with Edifies on Artblocks as well. I think he has a talk about generative art, and I know that when I found that talk on YouTube, I kind of watched it twice without breaks, and it was incredibly happy to have found somebody else first doing the thing that I wanted to do, but also somebody that was kind of making me peek behind the curtain of their practice. And I literally owe a lot to them, but also to the whole community. Aaron as well. He started generative art Slack. That's it's incredible, and yeah.
Really cool. And what was your introduction to the NFT crypto space? Because obviously Art is a part of that. But yeah, were you into it like pre Art before you learned about Art or?
So pretty much, I need to admit that even nowadays, I'm a complete crypto newbie, and I kind of barely understand the surface of it. I think the very first introduction that I got was from Artnome, Jason Bailey. He used to run this blog, and there was like, I think it was in 2018 or something like that. Why crypto? very important for art, and there was literally a deep dive into the whole crypto art and the early movement and the artists that were trying to experiment in on Bitcoin and the early smart contracts and so on. Was like the very first uh, touch I had with crypto art, but it was really not something I could understand completely. I was like kind of just seeing, oh, this is cool. But at the time as well, I was just creating generative art for passion, not really for anything else. And actually, that's something also I struggled at the beginning. Sharing my art with others was just really something for myself to do. And then later, I think the breakthrough came with Dimitri Cerniak launching Ringers on Artblocks. I remember I was scrolling casually through Twitter, and I saw a tweet from Sofia Garcia and Arctic Code that were interviewing Dimitri about the upcoming launch on Ringers. And when I watched it, and then when later I saw Artblocks, I kind of uh, realized that that was the perfect way to deliver generative art to the world, because most of the time before solution like art blocks, we were kind of stuck generating 1,000 outputs for ourselves, and then it became different outputs that kind of were of our taste, or there was like this huge curational process that goes into the end of the, let's say, the art creation. And it was limiting because on one hand it's kind of impossible sharing even just 10 images of an algorithm to kind of grasp the full complexity, and on the other hand it was always through the eyes of the artist. Meanwhile, then art blocks gave us the opportunity to literally take our code and the platform and people just being part of the process and then deliver the full experience of generative art to people. And that was really what kind of blew my mind. And I remember saying, okay, I need to apply to this thing. I need to be here, because that definitely helped me deliver my art to the world. And I think it was also around the time where I recently decided to start sharing my art more and trying to kind of becoming and also identifying as an artist, because it was again a passion of mine, but more for myself. And then the whole pandemic hit, and I found myself in a different country. I recently moved to Berlin for a new job, and I felt that my roots were kind of eradicated, and art gave me like a purpose to kind of something to focus on during the worst time at the beginning of the year, when there was also Italy was quite hit by the pandemic, and I was kind of afraid for my family and friends. And luckily, at the end of the day, everybody was fine. But then I really focused into art, and I kind of grounded myself in it, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. And then Artblocks came literally and was kind of turning my life around. I remember waking up every morning anxious, waiting for a message from Jeff telling me that I was kind of accepted into the platform. And yeah, it's the rest is kind of history, but it was crazy times.
That's so awesome. That's such a cool story, and I think a lot of people can relate in so many ways. I think it, brought people together, gave people some opportunities, and yeah, it's really cool to see a lot of artists like yourself, launch art and focus on art full time. That's actually a possibility these days where you can actually be an artist full time. I think that's such a
Yeah.
fantastic thing. I'm curious to see, like, do you have some of your early generative art pieces that you created that you're able to share with us?
Sure. Uh, there we go. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So those are kind of like the first one. It's called Ardore. It's a series called I don't recall now the series name, but yeah. So I think this was beginning of 2019 and was one of the very first output that's kind of make me sad. Okay, I found what's my style, what's my voice, what I kind of envision, and literally I fell in love with this artwork. And it's funny that nowadays is still one of the art pieces that's most appreciated by people and my collectors. Then we have Intreccio. It's literally more or less around the same period. Even this one, it's kind of some piece that I really love, and There was a collector that, after discovering my work on art blogs, decided to purchase the three of them. It's a series of three. So now I know that they are hanging in his house, one next to the other, and that really makes me happy. Then what else? Here we have stagioni. This is estate. It's stagioni means season in Italian, and estate is summer. So it's I think maybe here we can see some kind of Jason Pollock inspiration with all the little dots and this kind of paint splatters and so on. Then what else? Even this one, Ricordo d'infanzia, that means a memory from my childhood. And yeah, I think then I think we will discuss this later with Frammenti, but memories and like the brain and whatever are even something that inspires me quite a lot and catch my attention. I think this probably is the first time I kind of try to reproduce the concept of a memory from with some visual and generative art. This other one is called the Cadenza. I think this is still quite unknown because I still have to publish this openly, and it will be part of an auction that I will probably kickstart in a couple of months with some others pieces from myself from the origin and the early works. So I'm kind of curating this metaverse exhibition, and there will be a small exhibition showcases, let's say, my artistic process and my artistic journey from the beginning to nowadays, and then all the pieces will get auctioned. And the last one, it's called Vita. I think this one is very interesting because it was it's similar to a certain degree to the algorithm that then later I used for Rinascita. So you can kind of see the different traits and lines here, and and yeah. So I guess this is a very small selection, but kind of it. I'm not sure if you have any question about it, or even curious which one caught your eyes more than the
Yeah,
others.
I'm no, I'm curious about the one. It's the second from the right, the Decadenza. Is it? I think that's
Yes.
such a. It just like pops the most. I think out of the ones that I see
Yes.
right off the bat. But yeah, can you tell us a little bit about maybe the colors that the idea behind the colors, or just like the idea behind the specific piece?
So I think colors. That's a very very good question. I know that later you were also planning to ask me more about colors, and so I think before 2021, I was very kind of trying to explore and understand different color palettes. And when I usually start envisioning a piece, it's really usually either a dream or a vision or some physical object that caught my attention, and I start thinking about different visuals, and that's where I kind of, I would say, dream or imagine colors, and then I spend literally hours nitpicking different colors and to understand. I guess it's kind of how I want to convey the feeling I'm trying to imagine, and it's very visceral. It's not logical at all. I guess maybe in my previous job I was a designer for many years, and that probably plays a part how to communicate with colors, even not willingly. And then here in the specific piece, I think the red is very prominent. And when I was coding this one, it's kind of reminding me a bit of blood and some visceral things. But then on the other hand, we have other colors that are more different. So this will piece kind of represent something that's decaying. The cadenza means decaying in Italian, and I think, if I recall correctly, at the time I was going through some changes there as well, and I kind of felt my life falling apart for some probably stupid reason with thinking nowadays about it. But yeah, so I decided to kind of represent that, something that starts very clean, very let's say in a polished and ordered way, and then slowly kind of fade and melts away into more blurred colors, um, blurred things. I guess when I'm creating those kind of pieces, I almost always trying to imagine them into a wall. and that plays a very very big part in my practice. I also try to do some kind of animated stuff most of the time. My idea is how can I hang this in the wall and look at it probably every day and still be happy with it, but also trying to find additional meaning and just sit in front of it and observe it for hours probably. And it's something I really enjoy to do with art pieces generally.
And you said that this piece specifically, it's not available yet. It's gonna be part of like a metaverse experience, I guess, at some point. Very
Yes,
cool. And then
correct.
any of those, those early pieces that you were showing us, are any of those? Which one was the first, ever NFT that you minted, or is it a part of that list?
So it's not part of this one, but it's Organismo. I think it was a fairly recent piece at the time. It was from November 2020. And then with when the world, let's say, can of worms open and everybody was talking about NFT and so on, I kind of said, okay, let's try this. And I minted it on Foundation. And yeah, this is the very very first breeze I minted. Then the other one, and I think it's cool to discuss this as well. It's something that actually I minted right after, but it was the first one I sold because again, Sofia Garcia reached out. I just posted this on Instagram, and she was like, "I want to have this in my Miami house. Please let me know how we can do it." And she was like, "Do you mind if it's an NFT?" And mine, it was like kind of early days in NFTs from, let's say, the normal world. I think people just sold the 69 millions piece and was like, sure, let's do this. And then, yeah, so those two are the first ones.
So cool. That's awesome. I want to. It's so great to see some of your earlier work. I do want to jump into Fermenties, which I think is
Mhm.
honestly like one of the my favorite projects on Art Blocks right now. It's one of the earlier
Thank you.
curated projects given the time we're in right now. But what was the inspiration behind Fermenti?
Mhm. So again, memories, and so it's kind of a funny project to speak about because it was kind of an accident almost, or some draft that I was playing around with. So I was planning to launch another project on Artblocks that's called Essenza. I think maybe I've mentioned this a couple of times. And then while I was waiting for the application to kind of go through, I received my pen plotter. And when I was playing around with my pen plotter, trying to find ways to draw stuff, I had this idea of taking a shape, and I never played with shape subdivision in my life, like the algorithm. And then I was, let's just try, but I didn't want to kind of read about it or anything. I just sit down and force myself to learn about how to do that, trying and whatever. And then what happened, and it's actually very interesting, the whole piece is actually a bug because my, let's say, homemade shape subdivision was missing pieces. For some reason, there was a bug in the code, and the pieces were kind of disappearing. And but it made a very very cool effect, and I started kind of plotting it and was, oh cool, this is, I like it. And I started exploring it more and more and more. And then I thought, hey, this is cool if I could animate somehow the explosion. And it started as an early age agitation. I think even that was kind of a bug because I forgot some line of code, and I was like, okay, let's explore this. And then from Inti was born. And usually when I create a piece, I don't really understand why I'm doing that. It's more like again, this feeling, this imagination, or this vision I have in my mind that I try to bring to code. But of course, it's not easy, and most of the time it's very different. But it's a feedback loop because when I put myself into the code somehow, or the output from the code kind of give me another idea, and so on. And yeah, I was soon enough captivated by this whole concept, and I tried to think about it and what it stand for me. And then I realized it was all about memories because again, the idea of us and our memories, we are some kind of the mix of all our memories, experiences in our lives from childhood to adulthood and so on. And they really define the person that we are, and the way we behave. And then I think there's some kind of balance between life and death at play here as well, and the explosion actually symbolized that, and not in a bad way, but actually in a very very positive way, because at the end of the day, everybody will die one day, and what will remain, it's the idea and the thought that we share and the memories we share with others during our lifetime. And when the piece explodes, that's symbol, like that's the symbolization behind it, or people will, even if we are no longer here as an entity, people will kind of preserve and have these tiny fragments of memories that we share with them, and we will still be alive in their memories.
That's so cool. That's such a great story, and I love how for anyone that hasn't seen From NTPs, make sure you check it out in live view because as Stefano was talking about, the pieces, they're like stable in the beginning, and then you can kind of see them moving, and then they just like break off. And I think it's just such a beautiful and especially more powerful piece now that I hear the story behind it. What goes into the timing of the pieces actually breaking? Is that something that you thought about, or like does it have any meaning to it?
So kind of, I wanted to keep it interesting. I want to keep it a bit, let's say, not expected. And at the beginning, it was kind of a fixed time. But then I said, okay, if it's a fixed time, it's boring because it will just, every piece will explode after 1 minute or so on. So I tried to come up with a mechanism that made this piece explode at a given time. I think it's actually a trait of the different means, and some are kind of exploding after a short time, and some other probably will take 30 minutes or so. So it's literally, I almost tried to keep it a secret at the beginning. I wanted everybody to just be looking at the piece that sometimes explode, or I think I didn't share it, and then people were just clicking around or noticing the tiny agitation. They were like, "Does this piece move?" And then when it actually exploded, it's like the surprise because you're
Yeah.
not expecting that.
I think that's so cool. And then what goes into the process of selecting the overall shapes and style? Because I found out that there's a lot of really cool and different, unique strokes as far as like the features. So yeah, I'm kind of curious. What goes, what went into the building out of the shape, style, and strokes.
So even there, it was a very, let's say, iterative process, and most of the time I just try out. I wouldn't say it's brute force, but almost. I'm just there trying out stuff and see what sticks with me. And regarding the shapes, I at the very very beginning they were all squares, and then I said, okay, let's try different things. What happened if it's a triangle? What happened if it's a circle, and so on. And then I said, okay, but it's boring if everything is just the same shape. So what actually happens? There's at the beginning, I think the algorithm choose how many sides the shape has, and then that will be the genesis shape, and then there will be some randomness added that will add or remove the different sides, and that will define the actual shape. So there, in a piece, there could be, everything could start from a square, but then maybe some additional sides get added or removed, and so on.
Great. And then I'm curious to know about the actual path of the movement. Like once the pieces break, do they follow a specific path? Because I know that eventually they do return to its like
Yeah.
initial like starting state. But yeah, is there any rhyme or reason to like the movement?
No, actually, there's a bug hidden there as well. So yeah, and actually, I discovered after right after uploading the script to the mainnet. So I'm saying, okay, whatever, that will be staying there. So the different movement is defined by the noise function. So it's similar to a flow field that will just take different paths. And initially, that was supposed to be coded, hard coded, but apparently, the bug, what happened is that I was defining the noise seed to NNA, so not a number. And that basically made the explosion completely random. And at the end of the day, probably it's even better because then there will be more chaos and it will feel more organic. But yeah, that was not intended. And another thing that's interesting to mention is that originally the idea was to make the shapes come together, but I was not able to do that technically. And then I think Jeff came back to me with the feedback from the creation board. They were like, okay, Stefano, you will be curated, Frammenti will be curated, but here's a list of feedback that you could implement. And the number one feedback was, after a while, make everything come back together. It was like, damn, that's literally a sign I need to do this. And I think I coded for 3 days straight, knowing that in a week the project will be released, and I managed somehow. I still nowadays don't understand what I have done, uh, and then yeah, and then the piece really came together, and that's something I really enjoy, because nowadays sometimes when I'm showcasing the piece to friends and family who ask me about it, I usually leave it in the background open for a while, and it will just continuously explode and recompose and so on. There's some kind of beauty in it, because even if you're doing something else, maybe you're just chatting with them, and then after a while the piece will explode again, and you catch the explosion, and it feels very natural. And it's also something I really enjoy in seeing in Marfa, because there was this Fermenti Zero exposed, and I think I was casually chatting with somebody, and in the background it was exploding and getting back together. And it was really beautiful to see something I created in
Oh, that's so
such
awesome.
a cool environment. This was amazing.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Marfa later on. So one of the features which gives off kind of like a wired feel and look is called none, I guess. And I'm curious to know, was that always an intentional thing in the beginning when you had them all filled, or was the wired look more of like an afterthought that you thought about down the road?
So I was mentioning this piece was born as a plan plotter algorithm. So originally they were all wireframe or without fill, but then I kind of forgot that idea, and everything was filled. And then again, I came back to the stroke or wireframe look and feel. And I was actually yesterday night trying to again browsing all the fragment and trying to find my favorites one. And if you have asked me this question probably in June last year, I would say my favorites one are the FieldNet one, and nowadays they are the wireframe ones. So I'm kind of happy that at the end of the day, I even increased the probability, if I recall correctly, because at the beginning I was like, okay, let's have this, but not really. Let's have it mainly only field. But then I think I got some feedback from the people I was showing the algorithm. Were like, I really think you should put more wireframes, and I'm glad I did, because I guess a lot of people share the same sentiment and prefer the wireframe from Menti. I think back in the days when the project was still open, Eric Snowfro started to mint a lot because he was unlucky and he kept having field from Menti and no one without the field. And I feel nowadays he's still the top collector because of this.
Yeah, I think the wired look is definitely my favorite. So I'm glad that you added a little bit more probability for that to happen. Uh, as far as the color palettes, I was looking at the names and I noticed that it seemed to be influenced by nature because some of the palette names were bees, orca, daisy, lily. Can you tell us a little bit about you know I know you talked a little bit about selecting color palettes earlier on, but yeah, I'm curious to know for this specific project, what went behind the palette names and then actually selecting those palette colors.
So first thing, I think at the time, the palette and colors name was kind of a hot topic for the generative artist in on Artblocks. There was Alexis Andre that raised the bar quite a lot. He has this kind of crazy palette names, and so there was a lot of expectation how to name things, and I spent probably even too much time trying to find the perfect naming. So as I was mentioning earlier, the colors usually are kind of in the back of my mind. Then I sit down and really try to nail the feeling I want to convey. And then usually I take a step back, and after a couple of days, I go back to colors and trying to understand what they communicate back to me. And with the specific color palettes, I think every color palette has a way of telling me or remind me something. And I think the Arctica one, for example, reminds me of a cold place, probably in Antarctica or so on. And then when I nail down and kind of grasp that feeling, I try to really find a name that's kind of fit the meaning and the color palette name, because again, the feeling usually become the color palette name. And then I try to find different things related. And yeah, a good thing you mentioned, they have nature names like these and so on, because at the end of the day, I feel nature probably has a very very big inspiration in my process and in my art. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Another one I kind of remember on top of my mind, it's the elemental palette, and that kind of reminds me about childhood and primary colors. And so then again, there I went with straight names, so red, yellow, and because not because I didn't want to find more peculiar name, but more because I was literally trying to be elemental and kind of reminding me when I was learning the name of colors, or trying to write down when I was in the kindergartner and trying to learn how to spell red and so on.
Got it. That's great. And can you share some of your favorite pieces from the project?
Sure. I think there we go. So the first one, it should be from the Bachman. And it's incredible that he's able to collect almost all my favorite pieces. So that's props to him for this. Um, then we have this very very bright one. I love the contrast between this. I think it's called Isabelline and Fire or something like that. But the color is incredible. I really love how this piece stands out on a monitor, and so I can't wait to see this printed. Then we have this other one, and I don't know why I really liked it, but really really enjoyed the kind of retro feeling it has. Bits of like this flat gray, flat white, and also this one. It really speaks to me. I think there's some kind of tension on this piece. I like the red background, but the fact that this triangles kind of points toward left. And then we have this pair. This pair, I think I call that the Sakura pen duo, because again, there's this like pigment pens that are quite a good choice to doing plan plot, and they have this color, the actual pen, and then the actual color of the pen is red or blue. And when I saw those two mints, I was like, okay, this is perfect, because it kind of it's the circle closing again. This was inspired by pen plotting, and then we have two mints like this ones that are literally perfect for plotting, because they have the colors of the pen that I'm using to plot, but also they are white frames. So used to plot. I think yes, this one actually was plotted in red and gifted to the collectors, because he reached out, and there's a very very cool story behind it. So it was like asking me even before I started the wall machine for having signed prints, because I finally, after months, starting delivering the first prints to collectors. And yeah, just it's a nightmare logistically speaking to deliver those prints around the world.
Yeah.
I'm still wrapping my head around it, but finally we made it. But basically, this person brought me right after Frammenti was completed, and it was saying, "Hey, I purchased two Frammenti, this one and another one, and the other one actually is a gift for a newborn." And he kind of gifted the first day this NFT of Frammenti, because it was about memories, and he asked me if I could print it and sign it. And we arranged it, and I literally wrote a letter to the future kid thanking him, because
Oh,
it's incredible to think that there will be a Frammenti in his life from the very first day. And yeah, it really, I think it was one of the best thing ever, because at the end of the day, it's all about memories. and knowing that somebody decided to trust me and trust my art to make such an important gift to a newborn, it's incredible. So I'm really really thankful and grateful for this person to having done this.
That's so awesome. That's such a great story, and yeah, I love. I would love to, when this kid is 18 or something, it'd be great to kind of
Yes.
see, um, just to like, I'm sure for you to talk like one on one, I think it'd be just such a great story
Yeah,
to,
yeah, absolutely. I
connect the
would love
dots.
that. I
Like,
think I also mentioned in the little letter I wrote him, like, hey, one day, whenever, just contact me. I would love to sit down and just share.
yeah, and then you can talk to about the project, and I think that's I'm so glad that you brought that story. I appreciate that. Um, I want to jump into some of your playground projects. The first
Mhm.
one is I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Is Rinascita?
Kind of, it's Rinascita. It's probably the worst name to pronounce for somebody that's not Italian. And it's funny because when I was in Marfa, people were asking me about Rinascita, and I'm like, and then Rinascita. Ah, yeah, okay, but yeah. Yeah. What about Rinascita? It's an interesting story for that as well, because actually that would have been my second playground project, because Saturazione was the first one, and then there were some technical challenges, I think, with the render of art blocks. I think I was breaking it because it was using GPU, and so I said, okay, whatever, let's try creating something else. And I was creating a project, and then I felt stuck, literally stuck, and I wasn't going nowhere. And then one day I woke up at 6 a.m. and I had this idea of restarting the whole project. And Rinashita was born in a morning. I was literally just coding and whatever. At the end of the day, I was like, okay, this is it. This should be my next project on Artbooks.
That's so obviously. So your current project that you have open right now is the Saturazione. Is that how you pronounce it?
Saturazione. Yes, like
Sorry.
saturation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's also fine.
I apologize for butchering the name.
No worries.
Um, so yeah, how did you go about? So obviously these projects are well. Rinascita is more of a live render project. Can you talk to us about that idea of going from your first creative project of an animated piece, an interactive piece, to more of like a live render piece where it kind of builds over time?
Yeah, it's a very very good question. That actually I need to admit it's usually opposite in my art practice. Um, so and Frammenti was the first one that was kind of starting static and then becoming animating, because usually I think maybe if we go back to the very first ones, especially this one,
Hmm.
that's actually using literally the same technique. But even this one, but I think this probably is the perfect example. So what happened is that this is very, very, very textured. There are like probably billions of dots here, and I think this piece specifically takes about 20 minutes to render. And what happened is that there's no way I can just throw all that amount of computing process to any computer, at least for now. So what happened is it's kind of the same thing as photography, where there's an exposure, and I literally over time, with a long exposure, expose this different particle in batches, and then the image appears. So that's a very very common technique I use in my practice, and Rinashita is the perfect example. And I want to apologize again because Rinashita is very very CPU heavy, and I think I break many machines, and I still nowadays when somebody opens the wrong Rinashita, probably the browser will freeze. But yeah, so I think even in the future it will be probably more common for you to see some piece from me that develops over time, and then the actual opposite.
It's almost like the technology is being developed over time also, so maybe in 5 or 10 years when
Maybe, hopefully.
yeah, the technology catches up, then it'll run smoothly, and I think that's, I don't know, it's a really nice piece, so I really enjoy it. I'm curious to know about the one of the features in that project is called resilience, and I'm curious to know
Mhm.
about the effect of each piece with that specific
Yes.
feature.
So let me pull up an example from Rinashita. there we go. I think those two are two good examples. So basically, even here, there are flow fields and noise at play behind the scene. And then the resilience is actually how much the force of the flow field is applied to the different trajectories of the pieces of Rinascita. The harder the resilience, the harder is the flow field to fight. Meanwhile, the lower the resilience, the easier it is for the particles to flow around.
Great. And I've noticed also with both of these projects actually, and they're both playground projects. I'm curious to know the names of these features. It seems like it's a lot more playful this time around. Like
Yes.
for instance, under nature, there's feature names such as sassy, perfect, polite, and mischievous. And then under the life feature, there's names such as weekend after, daydream, 3 years journey. I'm curious to know,
Yes.
yeah, just like the idea behind naming those um, specific features for these two projects.
So I think there's no easy and straightforward answer to this. But when I was kind of creating the features, I think it was uh, Alexis Andres setting a very very high standard for feature names with the haircut features and so on. And I would say, okay, let's go crazy, try something else. And of course, all those different features have a specific meaning and a specific reason to be there. And in some ways, they influence the actual code. And what I wanted to do was to hide a bit the meaning, but trying to have something still memorable and funny. And probably nature, it's quite straightforward, where you have the nature perfect, where usually probably like the particles are flowing in a more perfect and ordered way, or nature sassy, where they are a bit more funny and bubbly and going diverging a bit from the flow field and so on. Meanwhile, life it's here, like it's playing around the concept of time. And I don't think I still have to make any piece about the concept of time, but still it's something very very interesting and very when you think about it, time is relative to your perception, even though time is absolute for like the standard word. And sometimes you feel that one weekend is super short, or one weekend like lasts 1,000 years, depending what you're doing and what's your mood and so on. And particularly here, I think the inspiration was the crypto timeline, especially during that period. Like 3 days on crypto felt like an age, and it was crazy because I could not keep up, and I was I was a little bit overwhelmed with everything. And yeah, I guess that inspired me to have the different name for the live feature.
That's awesome. And can you share some of your favorite pieces of that
Yeah,
project?
sure. So this one, I think the reason why this one is one of my favorite pieces is because I have a love and hate relationship with the terracotta palette. So, and I find it quite ironically that both my Mint Zero from Frammenti and Legenda have this palette, because probably it's my least favorite one. But having said so, when it works, it really, really works well for my taste. And this is the perfect example when it works, especially like those one. I think probably the resolution here is not high enough, but when you zoom in, there's some kind of colors that remind me about. I don't know how to say this or to express, but about dogs and maybe like the culture of breeding dogs and using them to hunt and so on. And I'm no pro hunt at all, by the way. But when I was a kid, my grandfather used to hunt because it was some common sport in the area where I grew up. And when you went to houses and friend houses, they usually had this painting of the dogs on the walls, and they had this kind of almost faded colors, but very very classy, and that really stuck with me. And it's an aesthetic that sometimes I try to replicate. Then we have this one, and I really love the different colors and how it kind of brings everything together. And this became one of my favorite because somebody on Twitter mentioned it reminded them the kiss from Gustav Klimt. And when I saw it, when you see it once, you can no longer unsee it, even though I have absolutely no pretense to compare myself to Gustav Klimt. But yeah, I really love the balance of this piece. Then again, we have these two, where this one is from Orange to Lemon Collector. I think he made a print, and it's literally beautiful. And this other one reminds me kind of a cloudy sky. So I kind of have this dear to me for this reason. And those two others in pair, I probably need to mention that Elemental is my favorite palette, and I really like the duality and the contrast of these two pieces, one next to the other.
Yeah, I think that would be a great pair to just have on the wall, maybe even like side by side. It's such a yeah, I love that palette a lot also. And so your current project, can you talk to us a little bit
Mhm.
about, I know that one was originally supposed to be your first playground project, but I'm curious to know the idea behind that project. It's a static piece, so it's definitely, different from your other two projects. So I'm curious to know like your decision making behind going with the static piece this time around.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That the main reason is, again, I was blowing CPU and probably things up, and I said, okay, let's make this static because otherwise everything will explode. But basically, it was the very first time I played around in a more serious way with GPU, and it was a very very conceptual and different piece from myself because I really like. I think if we take some example for Saturazione here, like how it blends, and the way colors merge together in different shades that gets created, but the whole technology was completely alien to me, and I was just playing around with it. And it came to a very specific moment in my life where I was I just had like the Frammenti success, and my life was shifting around because I said, okay, this might be something I can do full time, and but still I had my day job, and it felt a bit strange to be torn between giving my best to day job, but on the other hand, all I could think of was art. and and also once you kind of immerse yourself into crypto and crypto world, like all the paradigms of your life changes, and things stops to make sense and starts to make sense in another way, and so on. And I felt a bit saturated, like I was overwhelmed with everything. And and then this kind of piece helped me find myself again, and try to stop, take a moment from everything and breathe again, and really appreciate. And the main reason it's blurry and confused almost, and very very bright, is to recall and stress that this was one of the very first times where I actually had the name even before the piece, because yeah, again, saturazione in Italian usually, I'm not sure if it's in English the same, but we use that to mean something that's let's say you can take over, or it's very too much, and yeah, you can keep up with it anymore. You need to take a break.
Great. And can you share with us some of your, favorite pieces from this project? I feel like the colors are just like an incredible blend like throughout. It really, even with the blurrier pieces or the pieces where, they definitely pop, I think it's such a nice you just did like an overall excellent job.
Yeah, so I think I choose these four pieces to kind of showcase a bit the different options that you can have. I think here there's a feedback loop. Everything starts with shapes, and then these shapes get merged, and like the more they get merged, the more let's say they become kind of, whoops, move this around, they melt the different colors and so on. This piece, for example, doesn't have any blur, and it's more like straight lines, and it's less it has less feedback loop than this other one. And then the other prominent feature is the thing that's called sfumino. Sfumino, I think there's no way to translate that to English, but it's basically shades or something like that. And and when this plays, pretty much it takes the piece from above and starts jittering the different pixels to create this kind of faded and blurry effect. And then again, here when you have more feedback loop, then the merging points become wider and the colors blend together even more in a softer way. And yeah, here you can see pretty much the same structure where you have less feedback loop, more feedback loop, and then again the well, Sfumino things in action.
And I know you have an announcement that you want to make about this
Yes.
project, right?
Yeah, so actually two announcements. The first one was I'm reducing the size to 1011. So funny thing, I always try to stick with my edition with same numbers. Just I don't know why, it just feels right. So I'm reducing from 4044 to 111. Uh, One reason is I think market has changed and also it's saturated, so it's kind of funny that the name kind of plays around with markets. And the second one is actually that I'm building, I have built an additional tool where you can experience the piece in a different way. I don't think we can share it right now because it's, again, a bit computer intensive, but pretty much it will be an experience. I will share the link later in my channel and the artist announcement channel as well, where you connect your wallet, it will take your Saturazione, and you will have this VR experience where you see the piece animated, and there's also some music generated as well. And it was kind of the original vision for Saturazione, but it's using many libraries, so it was not possible to have it on Artblocks. But yeah, I kind of build this whole extra thing so people can appreciate it in the full idea or concept. And that's something I really like as well from NFTs, that you can build things and just connect your wallet and like the tool or whatever can take the NFT and build on top of it. I know people are building games and so on, and it's something literally I'm starting to explore with Saturazione, but I want to explore more. I have some ideas for Frammenti as well, but I need to see how that can play around. But I would love for you one day to be able to connect your wallet, then the Frammenti pop-ups on your screen and does something different than you're used to or something like that.
Cool, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And for everyone that wants to know that this project is still open on the Artblock site as of now. Yeah, it being limited to 111. Is that right?
Yes, I
Vince?
guess there are actually two pieces missing, so it won't be open for long,
Yeah, yeah.
probably.
Well, yeah. For anyone listening, I would jump on that if it is something that you are interested. I do want to talk a little bit about one other project, and then
Mhm.
it is Legenda. Is that Legenda?
Legenda, perfect
Legenda.
first
All
time.
right, I got it the first time. Which means legend in Italian, which I looked up, and it was a collaboration with Gallery.so in partnership with Flamingo DAO. And I was reading a little bit about this, and I thought it was really interesting that this was the first DAO you ever heard of was Flamingo DAO, and then now you
Yes.
were working on this project with them in collaboration. I'm curious to know. Can you talk a little bit about the project itself? But then also, I'm curious to know like what you think of DAOs now after
Yeah.
doing a partnership with one.
So yeah, I think this project actually started because Dandelion reached out to me, mentioned, "Hey, there's Mikey, that's a very good friend for me. That's the person behind Use Gallery. That's looking for partnership with artists because they want to kind of launch the token and have your collectors to be able to access gallery." And I was like, yeah, sure, and very excited to learn more about it. And they mentioned as well there was Flamingo DAO involved, and I was like, yeah, where I need to sign to make this happen, because I believe both are two initiatives that are contributing a lot in building this space and shaping it up for the future. And it was very very organical and very relaxed, the whole collaboration. They just gave me like one idea and say like, we want to do this, you have like a free choice, whatever. I think they were not still having Flamingo Flutter launched, but it was supposed to be launched soon. So I was super super excited for this. And the whole piece uh, quite was pretty much conceived while I was walking around in the vacation before Marfa in Dominican Republic, trying to take a break off from everything, and I was just walking on the beach and was thinking about NFTs and about the legacy that NFTs will have, and so on. About a bit about my legacy as well, and I started like visualizing this kind of different NFTs gallery, and I played around with the idea of the gallery as well, given that there was gallery involved. So yeah, so the whole thing was about trying to take those NFT in a distant future and represent them in a gallery, like as if humanity would go extinct in 100,000 years, and some other civilization will find our NFTs or whatever remains from this, and then look at those.
Awesome. And what are your thoughts on I mean, obviously this was kind of your first experience getting into DAOs. Like, was that are you a part of any DAOs now? I know you are a part of the Grailers DAO, correct?
Yes, yes, definitely. I love DAOs. It's incredible. First off, I think the power that we have nowadays to aggregate and create something together was a bit limited before DAOs, and now we have those entities that pretty much can do anything in the world. And I know that we are early days, but hopefully in a very near future, I know there's like somebody that's trying to buy a football club or something to create a DAO football club and so on. And Graylayer is the perfect example. It was born out of the need to collect incomplete control, but then it's growing into something else. And I was so confused collector. They are, I think, one of the founder member, and they own as well the most rare Frammenti, if I recall correctly. Reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be part of it? We will love you, and if you could create a piece for the token to be represented." I was super happy to do that because first I literally believe in aggregating forces and joint forces to do stuff, but also those are the people that empowered me to be an artist full time and support my work. So it's a huge honor for me to be part of their group and contribute and kind of also talk to them and so on. Have this like reciprocal relationship where we are just putting things on the table and see what we can do together. And yeah, so yeah, pretty much there's the Grailers token will be an artwork by me. I think it's ready. I completed the work like last week, and now we are kind of finding and understanding the best way to deliver this. It will be an interesting piece for sure.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. That's awesome, and it's great for you to also be involved with different DAOs like Flamingo DAO, now Grailers, and just kind of seeing how DAOs in general just kind of play out over the next several years. I think will be really interesting and empowering also for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm curious for your this Legenda project. Are you able to talk a little bit about, just some of your favorite mints? This is I feel like I do see elements of Fermenti in some of these pieces, and then some of your other projects, and it's just like a really nice way to, yeah, showcase some of your art as like yeah, all encompassing. I think it's great.
Yeah, sure. So I think let's take this example. So pretty much Legenda, it's kind of fun group of NFTs in an NFTs. So each of those different tiles is a mini algorithm by itself that's generated with its own rules. So the whole thing pretty much defines a grid, and then the different tiles get added to the grid, and they are kind of self-contained, self-sufficient. And different tiles were inspired by different projects and from myself, but also from other people. So as you said, like you can see a piece of Frammenti here. It's a very similar, if not almost the same algorithm from Frammenti. Then this other one was inspired a bit from Rinascita, but as well from Cadenza loosely. Then we have the mountains one. This is kind of a loose interpretation of apparition from Aaron Penne. And I don't think we have an example of the star, but it's pretty much similar to this, but colored. And when it's colored, it really reminded me from Obisera from Alexis Andre as well. So I try to have those kind of little interpretation for this future NFT gallery.
Great, that's so awesome. Yeah, I feel like it just has a really great diverse set of pieces and the overall project itself. You have like some minimal pieces, but then also ones that are very complex, and I think you can definitely zoom in and get like a lot more detail. Do you have any other like exhibitions or upcoming projects planned for the future? I know you mentioned the Grailers DAO, which I think a lot of us are really excited to check out. But yeah, do you have anything else planned in the future?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So as I was mentioning before, the metaverse exhibition with all my early works, and hopefully in probably mid-April or something like that will be ready. Then I'm trying to understand and see if there's any way to create something the real world in the Venice Biennale. Yeah, I literally live very close to Venice, and it would be a dream to have some pieces of me be part of that kind of initiative. Then I know as well for the Biennale, but it will be a virtual pavilion. There will be an exhibition that will be part of. And talking about projects instead, yes, there's the Greater DAO one. I have a very big collab coming up. If everything goes as well, I can't say much for now, but it will be memorable. And it's, collaborating with one of the artists that from the traditional different world that I really admire since I was a teenager, and it's a dream come true if that happens. But let's see. I don't want to jinx it. Then there's a Sensa for sure, the original project that I was creating for Artblocks. I want to kind of take that again and expand it a bit, and put all the knowledge I learned in the past year or so to literally make the best project I ever created. And I think probably we'll be seeing that around September, but let's see.
Great. Yeah, that's super exciting. Sounds like you just have a lot. It's going to be a busy year for you. It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I started collaborating with a friend of mine. That's now we are a team of two people that's helping me really kind of managing everything, and like planning and so on, because I tend to jump on board to any possible thing I could do, but that's not sustainable in the long run. So yeah, it's literally being a great help, like
That's
trying
awesome.
to steer and navigate me to the
Yeah,
different
yeah,
projects.
definitely. And what do you do in your spare time? It sounds like you're really busy, but like, what do you do in your spare time when you aren't coding
Yes.
a project?
You saw nowadays admin stuff mainly, because yeah, again, I'm settling down a bit in this new life. I moved back to Italy, and yeah, taxis and so on, and then social media, even managing that. Not a big fan of social, but you need to do that as well. Anyhow, when I have free time, I usually take a walk around, and I like to think that I'm in the search of beauty in the literal sense. I just love to go to a very quiet place and just stay there looking for a thing that inspires me and relaxes me and so on.
Right. And when you are coding a project, which sounds like it's fairly often, are you like, how do you prepare for coding a project? Do you have like a specific routine? Maybe it's like coffee, tea, or do you go outside to kind of, ease your mind and like get into like, I don't know, the rhythm of just like coding a project, or maybe you listen to specific music.
Yeah, so I think most of the time, so my background is being a software developer, and I literally coded since I was 8 years old. So
Wow.
coding is almost nature for me, and it's probably harder not to code than anything else. So literally, when I wake up in the morning, probably the first thing I open is a code editor or something like that to do something. Um, so I don't really have any routine. It's more like something natural I do. But for sure, music plays a big part in my life. I'm a huge electronic music nerd. I've been collecting probably electronic music since I was a teenager. I have an immense iTunes library, and I almost know every album by name or artist and so on. So it's very something that defines me, and I think it also has defined my artistic practice, especially the different sonorities There are periods where I listen more to minimal music or more ambient music, and then other periods where I listen to things that are almost metal or more gritty and very textured. And then it's also reflected in my art. I think Legenda, for example, is a very good example. Yesterday I was again trying to find my favorites one and realize I literally love the more minimal one. This one, it's incredible. It's probably one of my favorite pieces, if not the favorite at all. It's just two squares, but it's powerful and it's beautiful. But on the other hand, sometimes you have, even though if this one is relatively minimal, very textured. And but again, if we go back to probably where is it? Ardore again, you have all those tiny details and these kind of texture things that's reflected as well in the music I listen. Probably more, let's say, almost noise sometimes.
Great. And I know you were in Marfa last year for our first, first of many, annual get-togethers in October. Are you planning to make it out again this year? Hopefully.
Absolutely.
I know it's a hike.
I'm not sure how, but yes, I will be there somehow.
Okay.
It's quite a fairly long journey from here, but 100% worth it. It was incredible. I had an amazing experience and meeting with in real life with all of you from Artible's team. And again, thanks for putting that together. I know you have played a big part, and I think sometimes all the work you do behind the scene, it's not appreciated enough. And the whole team is incredible. But also meeting with collectors and the energy you could feel and the happiness and the whole weekend was memorable. I can't wait to be there again.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to being back in Marfa again. It was such a special moment for collectors to meet artists, artists to meet other artists, and yeah, it was just like a
Yes.
really nice like get together. But we will be doing it again this year. There's no date that's been set yet, but hopefully in the September October timeframe. But as soon as we get that information, we'll let everyone know so that they can start booking in advance. Because I know accommodation and food is definitely
Yeah.
uh, scarce at times in a small town.
Yes, definitely. But it's part of the journey and the experience. Trying to find somewhere to eat in Marfa, I
Absolutely.
would say.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And how can people reach you should they have any questions, like any social media or a website that they can follow you on?
Yeah, so I think Discord and the channel or art blogs are very good places. Otherwise, Twitter. I'm not fairly active, but I read everything and I reply to everything with my time. And then yeah, Twitter and Discord. And I'm planning to rebuild my website to have more content there, showcase more work. Just don't reach out on Instagram because I never open that up. But yeah,
It's hard to keep track. There's so many. I mean, you got Twitter, Instagram, you got a website, you got email, you got Discord. It's just, yeah, it's
yes,
hard to
it's
keep track of everything. I'm sure as an artist. Well, I want
quite
to
so.
thank Stefano so much for joining us on After Dinner Mints. It's been just so great, learning about your projects and yeah, just getting a deep dive into all the projects you have been working on in the past, and then future projects and what we can look forward to. And it sounds like you just have like a really big year, and looking forward to see everything come to life.
Let's hope so. And thank you so much for having me. It was much fun and really enjoyed. Thank you, Bonnie.
Great. And so on next week's After Dinner Mints, which is on March 9th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, we have generative artist Raphael Rosendahl, which will be a fantastic show. So looking forward to that. We do have a Twitter Spaces discussion called Minters and Makers, which is a weekly show with a variety of artists, collectors, and other notable community members with conversations surrounding art. Our next discussion will be tomorrow. That's Thursday, March the 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We have Z Jorge, Ixchels, and Rosendo Morel. So really looking forward to that conversation. They're all from Panama. So it'll be great to, talk to them and, yeah, just talk to them all about the generative art and the projects they're working on. You can tune into that conversation via the Artblocks Twitter handle, which is artblocks_IO on Twitter. All these discussions are being recorded, and I'm happy to share that as of 2 days ago, all of the After Dinner Mints, as well as Minters and Makers, is now a podcast. It's all available on Apple, Spotify, Google. So if you're on a road trip or maybe you want to get some other people involved and learn more about generative art, highly recommend to check out both of those podcasts. And finally, we have a weekly newsletter that gets delivered once a week with information on all of our upcoming drops and generative art related news. You can find a link to the newsletter in the description of this YouTube video. Thank you again, Stefano, for joining me on After Dinner Minutes. It was a pleasure having you on. It was great just catching up. I know we met in Marfa last year, and looking forward to seeing you again this year as well.
Same here.
And for everyone
Absolutely.
that's
Thank you so much.
thank you, and for everyone that's tuning in, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel. Be kind to each other, buy what you love, and we will see you all next week. Thanks so much, everyone.